Welcome to The Point of View. This is your favorite current affairs show here on Channel 1. On The Point of View, we typically do interviews, but every now and again, we delve into deep issues. So, President John Dramani Mahama has started forming his government. So far, he's appointed about 75 people. 42 of them are ministers. He's also appointed a number of CEOs. On the show tonight, we'll show you who these people are, how they got to be appointed, and what kind of angle they'll come to for the job that's ahead of them. Stay with us.
Are you tired of roaming for your medications and can't find them? Do you want to speak to a pharmacist or simply need privacy when buying your medications? Do you want your drugs to be delivered to you at the comfort of your home or office? Then it's time to download the Drugnet app, spelled DRUGNET, from the Play Store or App Store to enjoy total convenience. Use Drugnet, your multiple award-winning online pharmacy, for prompt delivery of all your medications. For further inquiries on Drugnet, call 0593-159-139 or 0501-646-496. And remember, we also accept all private health insurance cards. Drugnet, your #1 online pharmacy.
Tell me, is this thing on now? I've been working long like a marathon now. Tying up words, making them a bomb now. Tell me, we too lonely alone now. I got a message when they put it in a song now. I'll see you later, all the haters got it wrong now. We're touching the lightning, we're coming alive, yeah. We're feeling inside, yeah. We got the power.
Tank 300, where power meets elegance. Call us on 0501 772222 or 0501 773333.
So tonight what we'll do is to take, we call them sector ministers. So two things to start with. There were 30 ministries prior to Mahama coming to government. He issued an executive instrument and reduced those to 23. So he has 23 sectoral ministers, but he's created 3 positions which we call functional ministries. So in all, he has 26 ministers. Of course, there are 16 regional ministers as well, bringing the number to 42. Now, he's also said he will work with only 60 ministers, meaning that there's space for just 18 deputy ministers, right? So these are the 26. Now, what we want to do with this 26 is to show you who they are and where they come from, because one of the most important issues in the conversation has been regional balance. So this is how the electoral map of Ghana looks in terms of the presidential election and also the emphasis of the victory. We've already explained this in the past. Now, it appears to us that the average number of ministers per region is 2, with the exception of a few. So what we've seen is that 2 regions have 3 ministers each. Then we have a few regions with a minister each, and then a whole lot with 2 each. So let's start with the ones with the most. The Volta region has the most in terms of the 26. There are 3 of them. Governor Kwame Agboja, he's a member of parliament for Adaklu, and he's now the roads nominee who was vetted and actually been approved by parliament. Abla Jifa Gomashi was vetted today, and it's quite likely she will be approved as well. So she has been a deputy minister in the sector before, MP for Ketu South. So she's going to the tourism ministry. So this is the second Volta nominee after Agboja. Then the third is one of the more exciting ones in terms of the list, because the final list that came had about 12 from defense to foreign affairs. Very interesting. 45-year-old Okujeto Ablakwa is going to be Ghana's foreign minister, one of the youngest for that position, MP for North Tong. So the Volta region has 3 nominees, right? Now, the other region which has more than 2 is the northern region. Now, the northern region has 3 as well. I'll start with Haruna Idrisu, and then I'll come to the others. So Haruna Idrisu is possibly the most experienced of the 3, been in parliament since 2005, and he's the nominee for education, MP for Tamale South. His vetting was very short because he was former minority leader. Everybody knows Haruna Idrisu. I won't spend a lot of time there. Mohammed Ibrahim Mutala is also from Tamale. Interesting thing about him was that he was MP for Nantong, and then he lost and then went to Tamale Central, which is where he actually started from, because he actually did contest in the past for Tamale Central, and he went back there. He is the nominee for Environment, Science and Technology. We'll go more into who he is later on. And then another interesting fella, he is actually a 4-term member of parliament, Joseph Bukari Ningpe. He's been in parliament since 2005 and then 2009. There was a brief break in 2016 and he's come back. So if it wasn't for the 2016 break, he would have been in parliament for almost 20 years. Now, he is going to be in charge of the transport ministry. I'll tell you more about him as well as the program proceeds. So the 2 regions with the most are the northern and the Volta regions. Now, let's go to the regions that have 2 each. Talking about distribution, we'll go to the western region. Now, western region was interesting because if you look at the outcome of the election, MPP won only 2 constituencies for parliamentary. Indeed, presidential, the only constituency that MPP won was Takrady. There are 2 nominees from that region. You have Ama Kofibua, who's former minister for petroleum from Atuabo, and now indeed started as a deputy minister before he became the substantive energy minister, and then he now has been nominated for lands. He was also the minority leader in the 8th parliament. He's the actually deputy minority leader, and now he is okay, you can say he's the outgoing deputy majority leader because he will obviously be replaced. Now, Emilia Arthur was also vetted today for the fisheries portfolio. I'll tell you a lot more about her later on. Very interesting trajectory in terms of a rise in politics. She has many firsts, which is what I would say. So she's going to fisheries and aquaculture. So the Western region has the fisheries and the lands portfolio. We'll talk more about these 2 people shortly. The other region with 2 is Bono East. Okay, now Bono East has 2 nominees. We have Elizabeth Ofosue Jare, who was vetted today. Elizabeth is a former minister for tourism, a lawyer by training, and now the nominee for trade, industry and agribusiness. She had a very cordial vetting. In fact, a lot of the MPP people were claiming her because apparently her spouse is from the Koforidua area, so it was very nice vetting. She's the MP for Techima North. Now, so far, all the people have shown you, the 3 from Volta, the 3 from the north, and then these 2 I'm going to show you are all members of parliament. So it's quite clear that the president is looking into parliament. He is not a sectoral minister. I call him a functional minister. He's minister for special initiatives, so minister of state. There are 3 of them with that role for functional. Felix Kwachu Fosu, who's going to be in charge of government communications, and then another minister who's going to be in charge of climate change. So Imanokojo Ejekum is a member of parliament for Nkranza South. So we have 2 nominees from the Bono East region, Techima North and Nkranza South. And so this is Imanokojo Ejekum going to head this ministry as a minister of state. Now, which other region has 2? Central region. Indeed, the first person to have been confirmed would be Kasiel Atufosen, MP for Ejumako Enyan, and he was the ranking member for the finance committee. He became the minority leader. He is now going to be the minister of finance. Indeed, what is left is sworn in. In fact, he probably sworn in today, if he's not been sworn in already. But parliament has confirmed he's been sworn in. So parliament has confirmed his position. So he's the first minister of Mahama's government. Named first, vetted first, approved first, sworn in first. He's been through the mill. rather young. I'll tell a bit about him because he's actually in the group I call the late 70s group. So he's in the mid 40s. Ejumaku Enyan Esiam. The other person from the central region as well. So by the way, he has a longer experience in parliament. He's new in parliament, but not new in politics. And he's the one who's been talking since transition, right? So MP for, we call it Abura Asebu Kwamankesi, they call it AAK. He's the one who's been communicating through the transition, and even now announcing lists which even include his name. Thought that was quite interesting. So that's Felix Kwachio Fosu. So maybe let's go to the other region with two. So AAK, and then of course Ejumako. Which other region has two nominees? It looks like Greater Accra has two nominees as well. Samonate George, quite an interesting pick. His rise to politics has been quite rapid after defeating E.T. Mensah from Ningo. He's going to head the Communications and Innovation and Digital Technology Ministry. He was a ranking member for that committee as well. So we can see that almost all these guys are members of parliament, leaders of what you call caucuses or ranking members. So that's Samonate George, who was part of the last batch announced. So he will be vetted probably next week. There's also now Momolate, who was vetted earlier today. She's the MP for Krowa. So by the way, Samuel George is MP for Ningo Pram Pram. She is a PhD holder, former secretary of NALAG. So her interests are more local government. She did a PhD in African Studies for some things that relate to decentralization and the like. She was vetted, quite a thorough vetting. Apenyawa can spend a lot of time on her. She's going to be the Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection. Watching the vetting, she seems like she's up for the job. Greater Accra has two ministers so far nominated. The other regions with two are the Eastern. Now, Eastern is light blue because the NPP won the region, although NDC sort of, presidential-wise, the gap was only 40,000. So this is not parliamentary, this is presidential. We're just showing you if there's a relationship between the performance of the party and the whatever they go. But this is one of the closest associates of the president. Defense ministry is usually the ministry you give to the person you trust the most. It was held by Dr. Dokufuor for J. Kufuor. Mills had a soldier, one of the generals, as his defense minister. Mahama had Makoyongo. He also, at some point, had Benkumbo. So the defense portfolio is a very highly priced portfolio. So he is going to be defending. Now, the Eastern region and the Ashanti region are and the Northeast region are the only regions where people who are not MPs have been made minister. So for the Eastern region, the two are both not MPs. But he was Director of Elections and IT for the NDC in the election. And he's been Minister for Communication before, held environment portfolio as well, a medical doctor by training. And then Georgia Pariado, popular with the young people, but he's actually not that young. In fact, they are the same age, which is quite funny. But he's the youth leader of the NDC from the Eastern region, Okre. So he is also, so two from Eastern region, all right? A new ministry is headed, Youth Development and Empowerment. The other region with two ministers, and we're looking at the regional breakdown, is the Ashanti region, almighty Ashanti region, 47 constituencies. Now look at NDC's performance in the region. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Almost 8 constituencies won by Mahama. Almost unprecedented in their history. This gentleman used to be a deputy minister for defense. He's going to occupy the portfolio of housing, works, and water resources. He's called Ajay Kenneth Gilbert. A lot of people may not know him in media. He doesn't talk that much, but he was Deputy Defense Minister under the Benkumbo Makoyongo era. This is Mahama Part 1 from the Ashanti region. The other nominee from the region is the indefatigable Mohammed Mubarak Muntaka. Muntaka, we know him, MP for Aswasi, went into parliament via by-election, and the rest they say is history. Very strong guy. He was the chief whip with Haruna Idrisu being the minority leader. Very, very interesting guy. I'll tell a bit more about him later. So the two from Ashanti, Muntaka and Gilbert Ejay. Now, so we've done North with 3, Volta with 3, Western and Central with 2 each, Ashanti and Eastern with 2 each. Everywhere else, Bono East also with 2 East each. Everywhere else, there's just one nominee. Greater Accra also with 2 each, right? So 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, and then another 2. The rest are all 1 each. So quickly, Upper East region, the only nominee for now, out of the 26 substantive, we have no other regional ministers, Dominic Ayine, and he is the MP for Bolga East, a lawyer, a very respected academic as well. Then Upper West is Rashid Pelpo. There you have him. He's been minister before. He was sports, private sector development. He's now back as employment minister, MP for Wa Central. So that's Abdul Rashid Pelpo. So 1 for Upper East, 1 for Upper West. And by the way, look at the way the NDC swept the region. These are NDC strongholds, right? Cleared the whole region. And same for Upper East as well. Now the president's home region is Savannah, and the only nominee from his home region so far is John Jinapo, whose brother was minister for lands under Akufo-Addo. We had some agitations in Bole, where the president is from, about wanting the MP for the president's hometown to be made a minister. But for now, John Jinapo, he was one of the first 3, they call them the 3 wise men. Ato Forson, John Jinapo, and Dominic Ayine were the first 3 to be vetted. Minister for Energy, and the only nominee from the Savannah region. I'll just wrap up quickly with the other regions with just 1. So if you go to OT region, Kofi Adams, former spokesperson for Rawlings, former Deputy General Secretary, National Organizer, now nominee for sports. He's been decoupled from youth. Kofi Adams is MP for Boem. He's the nominee from the OT region. The other region with just 1 is Bono. He is the MP for Banda. Ahmed Ibrahim, local government, vetted yesterday, 4-term member of parliament, and local government is a big portfolio. They've added chieftaincy to it. A lot of people say he's close to the party's chairman. Then you have Western North, where the MP for Joaboso is now going to be the health minister, Kwabena Minta Kando. And then you also then have the other region is Ahafo, where Eric Opo is going to agree. So in a nutshell, what the president has done is basically divided the 26 portfolios. Actually, I haven't done Northeast quickly. Northeast. He ran for NDC in Nalerigu. He lost. So he's a known MP. He aspired. He's the president of Isifu Seidu, Minister of State for Climate and Sustainability. So to summarize what we know, 26 ministers, 3 for North and Volta, 1 each for Upper East, Upper West, OT, Western North and Northeast and Savannah. The rest have 2 each. So that's how he divided them. When I come back, I'll dive deep into some of the new names that came up today. And then we'll also talk about the CEOs, because the CEOs are quite an interesting bunch. These are people who are going to run very important organizations like Ghana Gas, MPA, BOST, Cocoa Board. Who are these people? Are they party people? Are they technocrats? And why are their appointments important? We'll tell you some of these things when we come back. Stay with us.
Here's Kwame and Yao. After hours of planning, both have locked in the same perfect multi-bet. Big win for United, over 1.5. And both teams to score in the London Derby. But who could have picked Leicester over City? Or a high-scoring game at the Bridge? There's nothing worse than having your perfect multi-bet missing. But there's nothing better than having it saved. Bet Saver. Win, even if your bet misses.
Fire pomudi ni agobio Ghana fueni age efise ya your local spices na ya frafra dia ya sankofa natural spice
me de go me jollof mu ni mi sti wa hodoma e ma ne dance
Stanley the barbecue the go on
sankofa natural spice and no an even use 100% natural said the happen
Adofo mamu nye huge mistake sankofa natural spices the
FDA agi ejodi nkratu yatu
Welcome back. Point of view tonight is showing you what President Mahama is trying to do. Hopefully, if we understand it, he's nominated 42 ministers, 16 regional, 26 sector or functional. We've seen the regional distribution of the regions, right? Now, the latest list that was brought out had about 10 names. Defense Ministry was to be occupied by Dr. Mahama. Let me tell you a bit more about him, because I think of the ministries left, that's probably the most important. Minister for Defense, always a crucial ministerial role. We've already told you from the Eastern region. Mahama was born in 1975. He was the NUC's president. He was the first medical student in a long time to win the NUC's presidency. And the rest, as they say, is history. Now, Mahama has occupied many positions. He was Deputy Minister for Environment at some point, and then for Youth and Sports, and then later on became Minister for Communication and Information. I've described him as possibly one of the people the president trusts the most, in the sense that, look, in the build up to the election, there was a lot of issues about the EC, and he was the head of elections and IT for the NDC, right? You don't put somebody you don't trust in that role. Defense is a very sensitive position. It doesn't change. So, for example, under Akufo-Addo, it didn't change. Nitol throughout. Under Kufuor throughout. So it should just tell you the kind of person he is. He's also a medical doctor by training. Quite an interesting story. But he's never occupied a health portfolio. Interesting fact, his first medical job was with 37. So he was actually working in the military facility. So it's actually sort of going around. He was a medical practitioner in the military system for some time. So when he was actually practicing medicine, he was doing it under soldiers. So now he's going to work with soldiers. So that's an interesting point. He went to Pope John Secondary School, always keeps talking about that. So that's Omani Boama. Now, I think the second most important, it's not even ranking, but big one that people were looking at was foreign affairs, Okujetua Blakwa. Now, this gentleman's rise in politics has been quite incredible, because and by the way, if you look at the 26 ministers, only the average year of birth is around 1972. So they are mostly in their early 50s. There are about 5 of them who were born in the 80s, and he's one of them, right? So you can say that the average minister under Mahama is like 51 years old. But he is one of the 5 youngest in the bunch. And foreign affairs is a big deal. He was the ranking member of that committee. He's been deputy education minister before. He's really highly regarded in the NDC, in the Volta region as well. And he studied political science. Later on, went to do some masters in different places. He's seen as a rising star who will be very consequential in NDC's future. We did a bit of work with the people in Norton during the flooding, and I can tell you that Okujetua Blakwa is very strong on the ground. Now, this is a very interesting pick by Mahama, because Foreign Affairs Ministry is the face of your country outside. He's highly regarded in the NDC to be given such a role at such a young age. I am not sure if he's the youngest foreign minister. I haven't checked, but it's a very significant appointment. We wish him well in that role. The other interesting one, for the sake of time, I won't spend too much time, is the communication portfolio, because we are in an IT world, 4th Industrial Revolution. Samonate George, for me, has been incredible, because he's born in 85, right? So he's not even, actually, today is 22nd January, today is his birthday. Can you imagine? So today is his birthday, and the day before his birthday, he was announced as Minister for Communications. That's just incredible. Now, this has data technology and innovation. Don't forget, the MPP's candidate was big on data technology. So, and Esla also was in that role for 8 years. She wasn't touched. This guy was the ranking member on that committee, studied agric engineering at KNUST, Katanga Hall boy. And look at that. He has other qualifications. He's become the poster child for the anti-LGBTQ law, and also the Ayawaso West Wogon thing that happened with the by-election. So, not surprising, a very interesting pick for somebody who's very media friendly as well. And don't forget, this ministry oversees the technical side of what we do on radio and television, as well as the very, very lucrative telco sector, So Samuel Nate George has risen quite rapidly in Ghana politics. He will be one to watch how he would negotiate on the issues of market power of MTN and open up the space for competition in the 4G licensing. All these matters are going to be very important for Samuel George to deal with. A very interesting pick, if you ask me. Now, let's go to the ones that I consider not surprising. So, for example, Ama Kofi Boa was always going to be a big person in this government. He's now the lands minister. He was the minister for energy, that's the fuel side in the previous Mahama government. He's actually one of the oldest. So apart from Rashid Pelpo, who was born in 1964, I think he is the second oldest, which is very interesting. So he's below 60 and he's one of the oldest appointees. Mahama himself was born in 1958. So it looks like this bunch of ministers are actually very young. Most of them were born in the 70s. So it's one of three who were not born in the 70s. About 3 or 4 were born in late 60s. Kofi Boa, MP for Mbele. He will be minister for lands in the Mahama government if his vetting is to go through. Who else is interesting in terms of appointment? Now let's go to the Ashanti region. He is the minister nominee who is going to be in charge of works and housing, and he is not very known in the media. It's called Gilbert Ejay, but he's going to be the minister for works and housing and water resources. And he, apart from his role as a former deputy defense minister, has not done a lot, at least in Accra media. Maybe he's very known in Kumasi. That ministry was held by Asenso Boache, all right, in the latter stages of the MPP. It was taken over by Kojo Oponkroma. So the ministry for water resources, you can say, stays in the Ashanti region. This gentleman has been in parliament for 4 terms. He's MP for Saboba. He's the minister for transportation. He's called Adam I think is, yes, Adams Bukri Joseph Adams. Now, started as a teacher, been in parliament for 4 terms, but went out in 2016, and interestingly was on the jobs committee, the employment committee of parliament, but has found his way rather into transportation, sort of interchanged with Rashid Pelpo. Rashid Pelpo was not on the jobs committee. He's now the minister for jobs. But Adams is an interesting fella. Started as an organizer in Saboba, risen all the way to become, at some point, the deputy Northern Regional Chairman of the NDC. This is between 2005 and 2008. And he's been rewarded for his consistency in being given the Ministry for Transport. So he's the third of the 3 Northern Region nominees. The other one is the nominee for Environment, Science, Technology. It's called Ibrahim Mutala Mohammed. Ibrahim Mutala Mohammed. He started his politics very early. He's now MP for Tamale Central. Ibrahim Mutala was the Deputy Minister for Trade in the previous government. He was also Information Deputy with Felix Kwakye Ofosu at some point. Now he's back as Substantive Minister for Environment, Science, Technology. Studied at Legon in Tech. He has his PhD in development work. He's quite media known, so a lot of you know him already. So there isn't the need to talk too much about Mutala, right? Very interesting trajectory. Started at Nantong and has ended up in Tamale Central. Then, of course, I mentioned Rashid Pelpo. Also not surprising. He's been MP for Wa Central for forever, since 2005. One of the most experienced MPs, born in the late 60s, 69 or so, and did planning, some economics, been Minister for Sports. He took over from Muntaka when Muntaka was removed initially after his scandal when Mills made him Minister for Sports. This man took over from Muntaka. Later on, he was made Minister for Private Sector Development at the Office of the Presidency. And he's now back as Minister for Labor, Jobs and Employment. So he's the main nominee from the Upper West region. That's Alhaji Rashid Pelpo. You notice a lot of Maybons, right? A lot of Maybons. In fact, Felix Kwakye Ofosu is also born in May. Quite interesting. He is the Minister nominee for Government Communications. one of the younger ones as well, 1982 date of birth. I didn't believe this when I saw it, that he studied chemistry, right? Felix Kwachofosu studied chemistry at KNUST. Can you imagine that? Government communicator who studied chemistry before he went to do oil and gas master. So of the 26 ministers that we have, about 5 of them are born in the 80s. So you have Okujetua Blakwa, Samuel Nate George, Felix Kwachofosu, all rather young. Most of them were 70s people. Like, to do chemistry at university, you are wild. And then he also did oil and gas at Aberdeen, I think Dundee, Wesley Grammar School in Accra, MP for AAK, and he's now a minister. Now, I need to talk about this because in the past, the MPP will usually have Minister for Information, and this will have Minister for Communication, where there's a spokesperson. But for the first time, he's been separate. So he's a functional minister of state for government communications, all government. So he will be on his own, essentially. Let's go back to Ashanti, Muntaka, Interior. So of the two security ministries, there's Defense, which is Omani Buama, and then there's Interior. So he's in charge of police, national security, and all the rest of them. KNUST, Asomasi. Interesting fact about him. He was actually born in Akuse, in the eastern region, from Kumbungu, in the northern region, but grew up in Asomasi, so eastern and northern and Ashanti. Very, very solid minority whip for many people who know him. So he's now going to be in charge of the Interior Ministry. So I don't know if I've gone through all the latest nominees of the president. So you have the environment portfolio and the transport portfolio from the north, Interior and works from Ashanti. Then we have tourism, Ablaji Fagomashi, who was vetted today, and of course Emilia Arthur vetted today for fisheries as well. Samuel George, Greater Accra, for communication, and then of course Rashid Pelpo, who was vetted, or who will be vetted for employment. And then coming right down to the Western North, Kwabna Minta Akando. Let's go to health. Now this is an interesting pick because Western North has one minister so far. He's the MP for Joaboso. Minta Akando actually did statistics and finance or something, economics. So he's not a doctor, but he's been quite vocal as the ranking member for the health committee, and therefore has been rewarded with the role. I think he's also one of the 4 who were born in the 80s. I think so, either late 70s or 80s. I'll check that for you. So one of the younger ones. So very, very high profile position. And you can say that through his work in Parliament, he's sort of earned it to rise through the ranks to become the ranking for health, and now the substantive minister for health. Very interesting. Wish him well. Now, one of the most anticipated roles was sports, and he went to OT region. He's called Kofi Adams, former deputy general secretary, former national organizer of NDC. Another Mayborn, 75, which is also a very common year. Giorgio Parado is 75. Quite a number of them are 75. A lot of them are 71 as well. Boehm is where he is MP for. He's a second termer. Studied zoology at UC, I think it was UCC. I'm not sure if it's KNUST. I stand to be corrected. And then later on some masters and the rest of it. This is a very delicate position because sports fans are very passionate, and Ghana sports has not been doing that well. Kofi Adams has his work cut out. He became prominent first as a spokesperson for Rawlings. Later on, he became a deputy general secretary. The rest, as they say, is history. He used to teach science at Adisado College. Can you imagine that? So Kofi Adams, the MP for Boehm, is going to be our sports minister. His work is really, really cut out. We wish him well in this role. Let me go to transport. I was showing you transport before. This gentleman is one of the 69s, right? So 69, 70, 71, quite popular in the list. MP for Saboba, he's now MP again. So he's been MP for, this is 4th term. Started as an educationist, also done other things in terms of masters and stuff like this. Joseph Bukari Nikpe, he is one of the 3 from the northern region. Saboba, which is close to Chereponi and Gushehu. So he's going to occupy transport. Now this ministry is big because under Akufo-Addo, this ministry had aviation, railways, and now all of them are just transport. So road transport, air transport, water transport, rail transport, all under one ministry. Very, very big ministry. And this gentleman, who's been in NDC since forever, risen through the ranks, who will oversee that ministry. So this is just a flavor. So let's just summarize. About 90% of the nominees are members of parliament. About 75% of them are ranking members of committees that they used to work in. And then a few of them are just experienced legislators. Only three of them are only four of them are non-members of parliament. The two from Eastern, one from Ashanti, and the one from Northeast. Four of them are non-members of parliament. And then in terms of women, there are four women. The Shama MP, then Krowa MP, the Techiman South MP, who was vetted today, and then Jifago Mashi. So there's a lot of space for more women. Now, the government is saying it's not just ministers that we have to be balanced on. According to Felix Kwachofosu, President Mahama has nominated 75 people. 20 are women. When we come back, I'll show you chief executives. All right? Because the argument is that ministers are just policy direction. Those who actually run the country are those who run the state agencies, and there are almost 180 state agencies in Ghana. So who are the people going to run these? About 13 of them have been named. I'll show you some of them, and we'll try and find out, are these people politicians, are they technocrats, or are they a merger of the two? This is still the point of view. We are taking you behind the scenes into who Mahama's appointees are and whether there's any reason or rhyme to the appointment. Stay with us.
Life is a celebration of moments. Big and small.
The sun is scorching, I'm feeling the heat.
With Piva Drink, every moment becomes a refreshing celebration. From the beach to your home, in every corner of your world, Piva Drink adds a burst of refreshment.
Give me Piva Pop too, and tangerine.
Celebrate every moment with Piva Drink. Refreshment for every occasion. Piva Drink, a taste you will love.
For Piva.
This advert is FDA approved.
One upgrade is nice, but a double upgrade is amazing. And that's how we do it. Upgrade today to get even more with Step Up. If you're on GoTV Max and upgrade to GoTV Super, you'll get way more with GoTV Super Plus.
That's so cool.
Get big value. Get big entertainment.
Very good.
Perfect! Upgrade and get even more with GoTV. GoTV. Love it.
Here's Kwame and Yao. After hours of planning, both have locked in the same perfect multi-bet. Big win for United, over 1.5. And both teams to score in the London Derby. But who could have picked Leicester over City? Or a high-scoring game at the Bridge? There's nothing worse than having your perfect multi-bet missing. But there's nothing better than having it saved. Bet Saver. Win, even if your bet misses.
Welcome back. Point of view tonight is showing you who the president's appointees are. 26 ministers of state for sectors and functions, and we've spoken about a lot of them. Let me just quickly show you the minister in charge of climate change. He ran for parliament for NDC for Nalerigu Gambaga. He did not win, another of the 69 batch. So he was MP for Nalerigu Gambaga, but has not been retained. And he's going to occupy the function of climate change and sustainability, which we are told is a very critical role because there are many things that require sustainability, whether it's agriculture, environment. We need to hear more about how this ministry will work. He's the Northeast rep in terms of ministers. Then the second rep from Bono East is Honorable Emmanuel Ajekum, who is MP from Kranza South and Minister for Special Initiatives. Now, we are told that the NDC have their own special initiatives. So it's not like the MPP's own, one village, one dam, one district, one factory, but they have their own 24-hour economy and the rest of it. So he is the second nominee from the Bono East region. So I think we know who the 23 are, or the 26 are. Now, let's talk about the agencies. Now, the biggest issue in Ghana is the economy. So the first minister to be nominated was the finance minister. I think the most important institution under the finance ministry is the Ghana Revenue Authority, because the whole issue of the economy is about raising revenue and lowering spending. This was a very interesting pick for those of us who covered business. This guy, I think, is a purely technocratic nomination, because I have no clue. Look, KPMG have done a lot of work in the tax sector. I remember where events have been organized on our tax system, where KPMG has been working with the GRA. So you can say he's been leading KPMG's consulting efforts to help the GRA. So you think the president will now say, okay, you've been consulting for GRA from KPMG, which is one of the big four firms, KPMG, PwC, Ernst & Young, and Deloitte. Now, Anthony Kwesi Sapong is a key member of the KPMG team and is being asked to be the Commissioner General. So I think this is, look, I have no knowledge of his political leanings. So from what I say, it's a purely technocratic appointment, purely technocratic. What I know is that KPMG, in fact, it has been deeply involved with GRA, because remember the whole scandal around the project, that the fuel scandal, I don't know what to call it, the one that Bryce Simmons raised questions around whether there was any for even that revenue assurance. KPMG did the report to sort of put the information around I think it's called the SML scandal. KPMG did a lot of work. Some people felt that KPMG working for SML, or sort of working for GRA and consulting for them in the past, was not the best person to do that audit. Be that as it may, it's a global firm. They have had issues. But to pick this man, who is a partner at KPMG, with no known political leanings, and to make him the GRA boss is an interesting one. We wish him well. It's one thing consulting and telling people what to do. Being Commissioner General is not just the consulting around the what to do, but it also now includes the how to do it, and also managing HR and all those things. So we wish him well. But I think the industry will be very excited to hear that he's been nominated as Commissioner General. We see how he does. That's a purely technocratic, if you ask me, nomination. There are a few other nominations that I just wanted to touch on quickly. Maybe let me do the petroleum sector. So let me go to the Petroleum Commission. Now, Petroleum Commission is headed by MFA. I don't know whether it's MFA or MFA, because they are different names people use. She's a lawyer. Litha Brew. Two things about Litha Brew. Now, Tony Litha and Marietta Brew are the original partners. Tony Litha was President Mahama's lawyer. Now, Marietta is Mahama's lawyer at the presidency. She was Attorney General as well. Now, she is a career lawyer who did a lot in finance and oil and gas. So you can say it's more technocratic, although in the last few years, I think there are a couple of videos surfaced of her campaigning with Marietta in Asin North or something. But she's a lawyer, 30 years at the bar, 1995. So hardcore lawyer. I think we are told she also used to be on the board of the commission. So which means she actually knows the sector very well. Done a lot of deals in the finance and energy side. So I think it's more technocratic. By that I mean this person is a lawyer in the field. So even though they may have political leanings, I think it's more technocratic. But interesting point, when she was nominated, some NDC groups wrote to praise it. They said they are happy to hear that she's been nominated. So her political colors are possibly also in the right place. The EPA is headed by a very interesting lady, a professor who until 2014 you say was purely technocratic, but now you can say it's a technopole. All right, now this lady has been widely published in climatology and some of the very hardcore sciences. She's actually a physicist, studied physics at UCC, and I was reading one of the UN papers, very deep science, pure scientist. But I think from 2014ish, you could tell she's a member of the NDC Professional Forum. Okay, so I think she even ran for NDC MP at, incidentally, AAK. So actually, when Felix Kwachofosu initially ran for primaries in NDC, I think she also ran from 2014. She's actually from the central region. So she's Professor Nanama Brown Kluche. And we actually published her stories on City before even knowing that she was affiliated to the NDC. So I will say that this is also more technocratic, but with the right political credentials. Indeed, no position is non-political, but you can say less partisan. But she's an NDC person. But she's a technocrat. I mean, no scientist will question her knowledge base. EPA is more important than many people think. It's because for most things you manufacture, you need an EPA permit. And if EPA is not run by people who have integrity, you're going to be in trouble. So we wish her well, Professor Brown, Nana Ama Brown Kluche, one of the early 80s people as well. So a lot of the nominees in this group are much younger than the ones in the ministerial group. So one of the early 80s born people, trained at UCC and also Cape Town. Let me stay in the oil sector and talk about the NPA, Godwin Edujitamaklo. Now this is an interesting fella. We interviewed him a few weeks ago on. So this guy is a lawyer, but he's also a politician. He's been part of Youth for Mahama, part of the bridge thing, all those things, but he's also a lawyer. Ayine & Co is a very interesting firm because the Attorney General is the partner at this firm. I was checking the list of names of people who work in this firm, and I think the names tell a very big story. So Ayine is the senior guy there. I think Ibrahim Baliba is also from those tables. I have the list. I think Sami Jimfi also is affiliated with these tables. So the ranking of names of this people in this law firm is quite interesting indeed. So there's a lawyer who's going to MPA. Now a lot of people are asking, what does he know about MPA? Apparently a lot of if you listen to the vetting of Ayine quite carefully, there was a lot of questions around work done in the oil sector, oil and gas sector by that firm, if you listen to the vetting carefully. And he being one of the either seniors, I think he's a partner of that law firm, did quite a lot of work on that field. So we are told that he actually does have some facility in the oil sector. This is the downstream. So whilst the MF Hardcastle is going to upstream Petroleum Commission, he is going to the MPA, which is at so the regulator at the downstream is MPA. And by the way, the upstream has a lot of challenges, all right, because that particular area, we haven't had a lot of new oil in a long time. So I call him a technopole. This is Lloyd Amwa's coinage. He's a technocratic politician. So he's a lawyer, but he's a political guy. He's risen through the ranks. Now, the other, you can say purely technical nominee could be the myth, the CEO, Justina Nelson. Again, I'm using this on the basis of my limited knowledge because we haven't seen her in active politics, but if she is, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Justina Nelson is going to be the CEO of the Minerals Income Investment Fund, very important fund, and most of her work life has been at Zenith Bank, risen through the ranks almost 2 decades. All right, both a lawyer and a banker, which is a very good combination to have for a very technical but sometimes controversial position because of some of the Japa issues. So we don't know her as a political person necessarily. We could be wrong. So it leans more to the technical side than the political side. Yeah, leans more to the technical side and the political side. Also an early 80s person. So we notice a lot of, we call them Generation X people, right? 81, and actually millennials, 81 going. This person and a few others. Eduji also in that group as well. Another interesting fact is that her deputy is going to be this guy, who is a finance guy, Johnson Asiru Nketiah's son, and he's described as an entrepreneur, but it's actually, you can call him a financial accountant, all right? His background suggests work in Canada, US, and other places. But politically also, apart from his biological relationship with the chairman of the party, he is the national vice chair of the Youth Working Committee of NDC. So this is a technocrat politician, fully, to work with. So possibly, you need somebody like this to work with somebody who's a pure technocrat at the top. We don't know. But this is the team that's going to MIF. Now, one of the interesting ones for me was Bost. Apechi Awuno is the son of Professor Kofi Nyidevu Awuno. We know Professor Awuno, right? An advisor to the Mills government. I mean, one of his most famous poems was called The Cathedral of Doom. Very interesting writer. An astute academic but traditional Ghanaian. So this is one of this is his son. I recall when the unfortunate incident of his death happened in Kenya, this was a gentleman the media reached out to confirm it. Now, two things about this guy. He used to work at Bost. And I think at the time he was the head of public government relations or something. Seen a lot in those times with Kwame Ewuwa Daku, right? Who used to be the CEO of Bost. So he was working at Bost at the time. Indeed, when his name was announced, the senior staff of Bost sent a letter congratulating the president for choosing him. So clearly they know him, right? Afechi, and then the chiefs of Veta is in Ketu North. They also wrote a letter saying they are happy. So usually, you can tell where a person is coming from by who he associates with, right? Ewuwa Daku is one of the NDC key guys in the Eastern region who used to run Bost, and Afechi was working with him at the time. And now he has been brought back as the CEO of Bost. So it's almost like the NIA nomination. All right. So Yaira Koku Deku, he was the systems analyst IT guy at NIA from 2008ish, and then he was sacked in 2017. He's back as the boss. Media will be very happy to hear that Cocoa Board is headed by one of theirs, Randy Abe, host of Good Morning Ghana from 2002. Can you imagine? 22 years. Good Morning Ghana. Owner of Heart of Lions Pando, a member of the Black Stars Management Committee, so a real sports administrator, but also a broadcast journalist. Bagged his PhD recently from, I think, an Australian university. An Accra boy, that's what they call him. So Randy, he's actually called Ogbolu, for those who don't know. So he resigned from Metro TV, I think, a couple of weeks ago. Now he's stepping into possibly the second most important parastatal in Ghana. Cocoa Board is massive because how many cocoa farmers? I don't even know. So Cocoa Board is going through many problems. We are probably in our lowest cocoa production in like a decade. His work is really cut out for him. Managing, indeed, in the vetting of Eric Opoku, it's a lot about the cocoa price. We really wish him well. Sami Jemfi. This was an interesting pick because most people here heard of him as of course, the communications officer for NDC. I think he burst into prominence during the Exton Cubic issue when he was one of the people speaking for them. And that was when he burst into national prominence because he was, of course, he was a president of the law students in his time and also known in NDC in the BA. But I think it was the Exton Cubic thing that brought him into national prominence. And he's taking that role very seriously. Distinguished himself as a communications officer for NDC. A lot of people were surprised that he took a job like this because you'd have thought the party would need to keep such a person in the fold to grow him. But he's gone to PMMC. So we will have to interview him to ask him what he thinks about this movement and what will happen to his rise in the raw NDC party. because some were tipping him for a position in the party. He's gone to PMMC, nothing to do with communication. But as we are told, he was with Exton Cubic, so maybe that's it. Now, you need to get the interview this man had with Umaru Sanda Amadu. It's one of the funniest interviews you ever hear. He's been in NDC for a long time, Tamale North, NHIA in many regions, Northern, Volta, and other places. But some funny story around why should a Muslim head NLA came up, and he explained himself quite well to Umaru Sanda. Sanda asked him, what will your family members think of you, a Muslim, running NLA? He says, so they'll be very happy for me that God has given me this honor. So interesting. An interview. This guy coordinated the NDC's campaign in the North in 2014. So some of these are more political, if you ask me. NLA, Sami Ewuku was the person running it in the previous administration, and now Mohammed Abdul Salam is running it for the NDC. So in a nutshell, we can see on one hand technocratic people. By that I mean people who are not necessarily known as politicians, and then more political people. Now let me end with this guy. Now this gentleman is running one of the most important parastatals in the country, one of the most written about, one of the most criticized institutions. Now I first got to hear of him when he was the spokesperson for the Energy Ministry and also spokesperson for a World Bank project on oil and gas, right? Even before he entered Parliament. So he was PRO for the ministry. We used to interview him a lot. Then he went into Bongo to be MP for 2 terms. He lost for the 2024, I think, primaries or so. He was Mahama's polling agent for Ashanti region, Mahama's returning officer for Ashanti region. So he's been always part of the energy team. GMPC is a massive place. He was on the energy committee in Parliament, in this previous Parliament that he was in, and he worked in the Ministry of Energy before. So obviously he understands the sector. So you can call him a technocrat politician, but more political, because former MP now running GMPC. GMPC is politics and technical in a good mix. KK Sapon used to run it before Joe Dazi. Prior to KK Sapon, we had Alex Mold. So you need to have the right political credentials to run GMPC, because it's the main parastatal which is supposed to explore and produce oil. It's had many challenges. He has to deal with issues around unitization, Springfield. His table is very full. But being a former member of Parliament who used to work in the Energy Ministry, he possibly knows how to navigate those very murky waters. So I don't know how many I've done, but there are, as I said, over 180 agencies that the man is going to fill. What we've seen is that for the ministers, you have to be an MP or close to MP. And then for these, you are either highly technocratic or you have to have the right mix of political and technical nuance to take the position. There are many more names we are told will come out in the course of the week. And watch this space, because we'll be showing you a lot more of these people. What we can say is we wish them well as they start. Well, let me end with this guy. This is Gihok. Very interesting trajectory from small arms into beverages. He's Jones Bote Avle, a lawyer by profession. He was executive secretary of the Small Arms Commission, now moving to Gihok. I would like to interview him to ask his vision for Gihok, one of the state agencies or state corporations that requires support to do a good job in the beverage sector. So that's Mr. Jones Bote Avle. Well, our time is up. Hope you've learned a thing or two. The cabinet is fast filling. 18 deputy ministerial nominees coming. After that, the 60 will be full. We'll bring you who those 18 are shortly. And then over 100 positions up for grabs in the parastatals. And we see how John Dramani Mahama, President of Ghana, is going to deal with all of those. We hope you've learned something new on tonight's edition of The Point of View. Thanks for staying with us throughout the day, from the vetting through to CNR with Vivian, and now with me bringing you some additional bits. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.